Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Josh Haas with the Hawk Migration Association of North America. Thank you all again for joining us for our series of Lunch and Learn programs. Julie and I are super excited to be able to welcome you back. And our sincere apologies for our connection technology issues we had last week. So we're just really thankful that all of us, including John Jacobs, our speaker, was able to come back today, just a week later. That does a couple things for us. It brings this really important program back in front of you all, but it also allows us to stay on track with our current schedule of programming that's coming up here in the coming months. So thank you, John, for coming back, and we're excited to hear your talk. Just a few things, remember these programs are free and open to everybody. We're so glad that you can join us. But also don't forget that we need your support more now than ever. And we're excited to, be in conservation with you. So if you're interested in joining our kettle and becoming a member with HMANA alongside all of us, we would love to have you. Please visit our HMANA.org/membership website page to learn more about that. Just administratively, we are on Zoom. Please pop open that chat window at the bottom. This is how we engage with you and also how you have the opportunity to ask questions of our speaker. So you'll notice that you do not have the ability to unmute. That is on purpose. That's good for us to make sure that everybody in the session can hear the speaker clearly. But that means that the chat window is more important than ever so that you can engage with us, ask questions of John, and the famed Julie Brown will take all those questions and facilitate the answers or the questions and answers at the end of John's program. Also, while we're kind of getting started, feel free to say hi and let us know where you're signing in from. That helps you get used to the chat and also gives us an indication of just how far reaching our programming is. And if you so desire, give us your local hawk watch where you like to go and hawk watch like we do. So with that, the last thing I'll say is just a reminder to at the top right of your screen, you'll see a little button called View. If you want to customize your view, that's where you would do it. And with that, I think I'll turn things over to Julie Brown, our programs director, and she will introduce our speaker. Go ahead, Julie.
Thanks, Josh. And welcome, everybody. It's nice to see all your faces again. Thanks for joining us this week. We're excited to welcome John to talk about red-shouldered hawk research. John has been passionate about hawks since his early 20s, having studied them since 1971, with a Bachelor of Science degree from St. Norbert College and a Master's of Environmental Science degree from the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. He was the Curator of Science at the Neville Public Museum of Brown County, Wisconsin for 32 years. He's been on the board of Northeastern Wisconsin Audubon Society for more than 35 years, often serving as president. Retiring from the museum in 2013 allowed him to turn his research on red-shouldered hawks into a full-time commitment. He and his wife of 40 years, Mary, have 2 sons and 3 grandchildren and live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So welcome, John.
Thank you. And going right into the program, this program will take about 35 minutes. And is not advancing. Do I need to click?
So you could, hey, John, if you could take your mouse and just click on the screen where your PowerPoint is once, and then use your down or up arrows to start advancing slides, it should work.
There we go. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. Programs mainly on migrating red-shouldered hawks, but before I get into that, I just want to give a little bit of background on phantoms of the forest. I'm well aware that many creatures of the forest have been called phantoms of the forest. Everything from slime molds to great gray owls, even wolves. However, since red-shouldered hawks can be very secretive and shy, we felt that this was a good term for them, and it helps in our fundraising. My brother Eugene and I have been studying red-shouldered hawks for more than 50 years. We have over 185 sites where they have nested. Each spring, we search between 100 and 130 of these sites for active nests. We find about 40 active nests each year, and then we monitor those nests for success. Finding the nest is key for this telemetry study. Another part of the study is we put trail cams above the nest and oftentimes at the base of the nest tree. We don't do this for every nest. We do it mainly maybe 4 or 5 nests at the most. We also collect molted feathers for DNA analysis to determine nest site loyalty, longevity, and relationships. And we're working with Dr. Adam Brandt from St. Norbert College. For the past 25 years, we've talked about using telemetry to discover more of the secrets these hawks have been keeping from us. New technology, however, has been too heavy and expensive for our little frog killers until 2018. During January of 2018, we searched telemetry websites and came across this website from Milsar. It was too good to be true. Finally, a 10-gram UHF GPS logger with remote download of data. And this distance in clear sky is about 3 miles maximum. However, in the woods, it's maybe 150 yards. The recording receiver is also very portable. It's about 4 inches long. The battery, which lasts up to 8 hours, is also only about 4 inches long. This cord plugs into that battery pack. And then the portable antenna is only about 4 inches long, so it's very portable. And best of all, it worked beautifully on another hawk, a Polish Harrier. They got summer breeding range, then migration data. Wow. We wanted maps like this for our red-shouldered hawks here in Wisconsin. Now, over the years, we've used 3 different companies for these loggers, trackers, transmitters. About 15 of the units are these Milsar UHF loggers. We also used 3 Ecotone transmitters and 4 cellular tracking technologies trackers. And that's what a CTT tracker looks like. One of the advantages, it's been the last 2 years that we use this. It's a little bit smaller. It's GSM, which means the data is downloaded through the telephone, cellular telephone towers, and then via internet to our computers. Also, the antenna is not external or sticking out, it's internal, and that helps to keep the hawks from biting on them and pulling them. And then back to 2018, we quickly realized we needed to clearly define our project and start raising money. We basically want to capture the nesting red-shouldered hawks on their breeding grounds, equip them with transmitters, and determine their breeding summer range, and then their migration times and routes south in the fall, their wintering grounds, and their northward migration in spring. With these first Milsar trackers, the hawks need to return in spring to the same breeding area they used the year before for that method to work. Other than some very spotty banding data, no good information like this is known for red shoulders in Wisconsin. In fact, this would be the first attempt to monitor migrating red-shouldered hawks in the US with transmitters. We approached Northeastern Wisconsin Audubon Society to be the sponsoring agency. This gives the project 501c3 status and tax exemption for donors. Most granting agencies will only give money to other nonprofits. We approached and secured large amounts of money from both Otto Leopold Audubon Society in Stevens Point, and of course NEW Audubon here in Green Bay during the same week in February of 2018. We then generated a list of more than 25 potential groups, quickly sent out 20 grant applications. We felt we needed to raise enough money for the first order of loggers, about $10,000, and then order loggers, get them from Poland in time for the nesting red shoulders in the late spring of 2018. We knew we were asking for some big bucks from local organizations, amounts larger than they're used to giving. We both worked 40 hours a week for 3 months on this part of the project. We conferenced or emailed every day. And to date, we've raised $44,000, which matches our projected budget. All the money came from wildlife groups or individuals. No corporations, industry, or government agencies gave money. The largest donor is the American Wildlife Conservation Foundation. They've probably given more than double what any of these other donors have given. Some of the other organizations are the Bird City, Green Bay, Wisconsin Society for Ornithology, and of course, a lot of Audubon groups here in Wisconsin, as well as a number of individuals. And some of these individuals have given 1,200, maybe 1,500, even some gave $2,000 to the project. In 2019, we partnered with the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point graduate program. One graduate student, Matthew Heineman, used this project for his master's thesis in wildlife biology. This partnership gave the project academic credibility, as well as additional resources and access to computer programs to analyze and present data. Matthew graduated in the spring of 2021, but continued to work on this project in 2022. And we look forward to working with other students in the near future. Here's an example of a poster that Matthew did for the Wildlife Society conference in Wisconsin during the late winter 2020, right before the COVID pandemic hit. I also did a poster like this for the Raptor Research Conference in Fort Collins, Colorado. Matthew then also presented a Zoom paper on this project at the Raptor Research Conference in 2022. And of course, Eugene and I have both given numerous programs to various groups here in Wisconsin. We send 2 reports each year to the donors. And parts of these reports are also sent out through social media. I'm working in Northeastern Wisconsin. Most of my birds are in Nicolet National Forest, right here where you see the marker. But I also have nests all the way down just north of Green Bay. Got one over in Manitowoc County at Woodland Dunes, and I have a few sites in Door County at the state park there, Peninsula State Park. My brother Eugene works in Stevens Point here. He has birds in this area and even a few trickling down towards Madison. So we've got a number of sites in eastern and central Wisconsin, but certainly the whole state is not represented in our studies. Remember now, their bird, the harrier, is out in the sun all the time, all day long, whereas our birds are in the woods, under the canopy, not getting anywhere near the sun that they were. But you'll also notice this is taken at a red-shoulder site, nest site, that sunlight gets through the canopy, gets down to the ground. So we're thinking, well, we should get enough sunlight to recharge those batteries. But another problem that we experienced is there's plenty of feathers on the back of these hawks to cover the transmitter. And that transmitter is right here. You can probably just see a couple of the solar panels. Tends to get covered by feathers. We still downloaded over 300 GPS locations during the summer of 2018 from this bird. And just a quick overall review. We really have five main challenges with this project. The first three are serious and difficult. These other two are minor. Volts. Getting enough sunlight to recharge the logger solar batteries and keeping them above 3.65 volts. And for some of them, it's 3.7 volts. 2, hawks biting the logger or the antenna and breaking it. They can reach that quite easily. They have a lot of agility in that neck and they can reach that and bite that quite easily, pull on the antenna. And often this kills the logger or the tracker. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. More than 20% of adult red-shouldered hawks die each year, and possibly it may be as high as 25%. And then, of course, if we're using these Milsar loggers with the UHF recovery system, if the birds don't return to the same area, we're probably not going to find them. And then some of these birds are pretty shy and they won't let us get even within 150 yards of them. So it can be difficult to get their data that way. Now I mentioned that the hawks, 20 to 25% die each year. They don't just die, they're killed. They're killed by fisher, like this guy here, or great horned owls. Those are the two main killers of adult red-shouldered hawks in Wisconsin and possibly over a lot of other states. Especially the females on the nest. Those are particularly vulnerable. During June of 2018, we captured 5 adult red-shouldered hawks, 3 females, 2 males. 3 were in Nicolay National Forest in northeastern Wisconsin, and 2 were in the Stevens Point area in central Wisconsin. So we were off to a good start. The loggers are like mini computers on the backs of the birds and record a plethora of conditions and activities, at least according to their website. Way more than I want. We had to install and learn to operate 3 new computer programs for the Milsar loggers. This green line is the voltage remaining in the logger. Critical measurement we check each time we download data. As you can see, that voltage fluctuates daily. Goes up during the day when there's any sunlight, and then it goes down during the night when there's no light. The logger will shut off when the voltage drops below 3.65 and remain dormant until the sunlight raises that voltage back above 3.65 volts again. 4.2 volts is the highest level it will recharge to. So there's a very tight window where that voltage has to remain. And you can see here the voltage varies from 3.94 to 3.98. So it's in a very good range. Just a quick summary here. We have about 5 years in on the project. We've captured and put transmitters on 22 hawks. We were able to get 22 breeding ranges for these hawks. 14 of them were females, 8 were males, 11 in central Wisconsin, 11 in northeast Wisconsin. However, we only have 11 complete migration data, as well as 3 incomplete data. Here's the summer breeding range for a male red shoulder on Nicolet National Forest, and its range is about 290 acres. There's a number of other computer programs that will measure range and compare them with other studies. Matthew's working on that. For programs like this, we generally just use the data we get through Google Maps. 70 locations is usually considered enough to determine a hawk's range. As you can see here, we've got several hundred. Here's a range for a female hawk in central Wisconsin along the Wisconsin River. Okay, now let's look at the migration. One female nested in woodland dunes here along the lakeshore. She's the only bird that we've got a tracker on that migrated along the coast, along the Lake Michigan coast. She went down to central Alabama and then returned. On her return trip, she did not use the coast again. Four of the hawks that we put trackers on overwintered in Wisconsin. That's 4 out of 14 that remained in Wisconsin all winter. 3 red shoulders stayed on their summer range or within 8 miles of their summer range. One hawk only migrated 75 miles. So almost 29% of the breeding red shoulders we put trackers on remained in Wisconsin to face a brutal, cold, food insecure winter. How did they survive? Well, we're not sure because of the time delay for these birds, but from what we know, they probably ate red squirrels, red birds at feeders, maybe voles along the edge of the woods, maybe even suet at feeders or carrion. These are all foods that we know red shoulders wintering in Wisconsin have eaten over the past 45, 50 years. One of these hawks that I want to give a little more information on is a bird that wintered near her summer range on Nicolet National Forest. We were really surprised to find this because it's so far north. The snow is usually so deep up there, and of course it's much colder. And we don't know how she made it. We figure it was similar to what other red-shoulders might have eaten, maybe more red squirrels. We don't really know because we didn't get that data until the following spring. Had we gotten that earlier, I might have driven up there and tried to find her. I don't know if that would have worked, but I probably would have tried. Here's a detailed map of her range. This is her breeding area. And then she went about 8 miles up here in September and October, went back and then went back up again. She came down here in November and December and spent some time there. January and February, she was here. She went back up here and then went back to her breeding range. She returned to her breeding range to nest and raise young in the spring of 2020. But her nest was raided, the young killed, possibly, or maybe probably even she was killed because I was not able to relocate her again, ever. I suspect Fisher got him. Since she had a Milsar UHF logger, I needed to get 150 yards from her to get the data. I tried for 3 years and never got anything, no luck. However, her summer range was still occupied by a pair of red-shouldered hawks all those years. They didn't use the same nest that she did, but they were in her territory, her summer range. This is the first hawk I put a logger on, June 2018. But I did not hear from him again in 2018. I tried 5 times to get data, nothing. That was a bummer. The following year, in early May of 2019, I visited the nest site and found these hawks were again using the same nest they used in 2018. The male was off hunting. I put the receiver and battery pack under the nest for 4 hours as I searched other areas for hawk nests. I needed to get the receiver within 150 yards of the hawk to download data. I figured the male should return at least 3 times during that 4 hours. Later, I downloaded the data into the computer. Wow. 2,729 locations for this bird were stored in that logger. Almost 1 year of data. There was summer 2018 data, fall migration data, winter data, spring migration data, and of course their nesting range, or his nesting range for 2019. Now these are the results we'd like to get from every hawk we put a logger on. This is how we plan the project to work. It's so sweet when your plan works. This hawk, Milsar logger number 004, left his summer breeding range near Lakewood in Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest on November 10th, 2018. Migrated over 760 miles in 45 days south to northern Alabama, arriving on December 24th, 2018. He remained in Alabama for 2 months until February 26th, returning north to his former summer breeding range on March 18th, taking 21 days to migrate north. So that's 45 days to go south and 21 days to go back north. The birds are really jacked up in the spring, hormones, everything. They want to get back to their nesting areas quickly, and they do. Now I can zoom in on these maps, and where you see clusters like this, the hawk spent some time, maybe a couple days Maybe the wind wasn't right. Maybe it was raining that day. Maybe it was a good place to hunt. And then in the spring here, you have a fast moving hawk going north, where these little icons are far apart. And if I click on any one of these icons, I get a whole cluster of data for that particular site. All the adults we caught and put trackers on were at least 2 years old, and they were captured at their nest site during June. We captured them using a great horned owl decoy and a mist net. For posters, programs, publications, migration maps like this are much cleaner and easier to read, and Matthew's working with these programs. This map shows the fall and spring migration for 3 hawks. The blue line is that male I talked about earlier. The black line up here near the top is a female that only migrated 75 miles and stayed in Wisconsin for the winter. And this yellow line is a female from the Stevens Point area that wintered in southern Illinois. Note that these hawks tend to have a pretty straight north-south migration. They don't deviate much east-west. They don't appear to be using major river systems. And these guys didn't use the coast, the Lake Michigan coast. That female from Woodland Dunes was our only bird that used that coast, and she nested less than a mile from the Lake Michigan coast. Now here's 4 birds, just their fall migration. And again, none of them followed the coast. They went pretty much north-south, and except for this black dot here, this bird did not migrate at all. It stayed on its summer breeding range all winter. This red line is a female that nested in Nicolet National Forest, migrated south on October 17th, arrived in northern Mississippi on November 7th, 22-day migration of 755 miles. The center line, purple track, is a female that left Stevens Point on October 18th, migrated 1,036 miles to near Baton Rouge, Louisiana, arriving on November 11th. This bird traveled the longest distance of any of our birds. And the green track on the left is a male that left Stevens Point on October 17th and arrived in Arkansas on November 23rd, a 37-day trip for a total distance of 648 miles. Summary of the 7 hawks. The top part is the fall migration. The average date that they left their summer range was October 22nd. They arrived on their wintering grounds November 21st. It took them about a month, 31 days, to go, and I can't quite read it, 785 miles, 765 miles. And then going back north, average date that they left was March 5th. They arrived March 23rd. Took them only 18, maybe 19 days to migrate north. So you can see there's quite a discrepancy. They tend to take more time going south in the fall, and then they kind of rush back in the spring. Just a quick summary again. We feel we got about 2 years left on this project. We'd like to get at least 25 hawks tracked or with telemetry on. Equal number, that's good, but we need more males and we need more migration. Plans for 2024. Next year, we're going to deploy 3 more of these trackers, especially on males. We might just put them on males so we get the represented number of males up. We want to get more migration data. We want to do presentations like this to groups, do a poster or paper at a wildlife conference. We'd like to partner with the university again and maybe get another grad student to work on the project. And of course, we want to publish in a raptor journal like Journal of Raptor Research. And now I guess I'll entertain questions while these 2 hawks play tug of war with a snake.
That's great. Thank you, John. That
You're
was so
welcome.
interesting. Thanks so much. I'm so curious about this species just because I see it here a lot in New Hampshire and I don't know a lot. Do you know of other states, other projects doing research on this species?
The 2 other areas that there's a lot of red shoulder work being done are California and Ohio. And
Okay.
both of those guys have published quite a bit of information in, especially the Ohio group with Cheryl Dykstra and Jeff Hayes and those guys. They've published a lot of material on red shoulders. Their red shoulders, however, are not migratory. And they've done telemetry work and they've gotten breeding area data and they've gotten wintering data, but they have almost no migration.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting how you saw 4 out of your 14 were overwintering. I was curious if any were wintering in that area that far north. That's very cool.
Yeah, I don't know if those numbers are going to hold up with a few more birds, but boy, 29% is way higher than what I estimated. For the past 50 years, I've been telling people, maybe 5%, certainly less than 10% winter in Wisconsin, based on what we've seen and based on Christmas bird counts and things like that. But if it's like 29%, what that might tell us is this hawk is just as rare as we think it is. It's on the Wisconsin state threatened species list, and I know there's pressure and there's interest to take it off that list because some people think they're more common now. I don't think they are, but I'd like to see why they think so. We just completed a breeding bird atlas for Wisconsin, so it's going to be interesting what they come up with, what they find. It'll be our second breeding bird atlas, so they can compare bird populations or observations from the new one to the one that was done in the 1990s.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious what the results will be as well. I know, HMANA is part of the Raptor Population Index project. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it kind of analyzing long-term data sets from hawkwatch sites across the continent, and red shoulders are thought to be mostly stable, it seems, across the continent. There's 79% of the 54 total sites showing stable counts in the last 10 years. So more or less pretty stable. I I know some of the highest counts are in your area or in the Great Lakes region. So it's just, I'm so curious about the species. I'm wondering, we have a few questions coming in, and please add your questions if you have others. I'm wondering what your process is like for locating these nests. I see most of these photos are of hardwood trees. Are they always in hardwood trees? And what is your process of finding them and locating them?
Okay, most of them, vast majority, are in hardwoods. About 3% are in white pines.
Okay.
So we get a nest or two in white pines just about every year, but it's one or two nests. The most commonly used hardwood here in Wisconsin by these birds is red oak. Now, it could be the structure of the tree, because they really need a crotch with at least 3 big limbs. And this one that you see in this picture here for the questions, that had at least 4 large limbs. That was a yellow birch. Maybe 30 to 35% of the nest trees are red oak, and they're hardwood forests. Some of the key factors for red shoulders in their nesting sites: extensive, mature hardwood forests that are wet, either riparian, but often just partially flooded in the spring and dry up by summer.
Okay.
They want a swamp or wetland wooded nearby. Ponds are good. Swamps are good. An open marsh, cattail marsh, generally not a good area for them. They want trees in it. And they want extensive forest, mainly because otherwise great horned owls and red-tailed hawks kill them or chase them out of there, take over their nest site. I've had nest sites, the actual nest tree, the nest that the red shoulder used in year 1 was used by a red tail in year 2. The only difference being an adjacent 40-acre woods was clear cut. Well, that opened it up for red tails, and then the nest wasn't in the clear cut, but it was only about 100 yards from the clear cut, and that was very convenient for the red tails. And the red tails are real common here in Wisconsin. In fact, I live in town, in the suburbs, and I have red tails nesting in my backyard. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's fun in a way, but it's, they're very numerous, very common. Did I answer your question? Oh, what do I look for? That's what you also wanted to know. Originally, yes. I would pretty much go to a wooded area that had a woods, say at least a square mile, and just search in the spring when I can, before leaf out in April, when I can see 150 yards. However, over the years, a lot of new techniques that help, one being calls. I have a game caller with a red-shouldered hawk call on it. And so if I want to check a woods in the spring, late March, early April, I play that call to see if anybody responds. And if they do, sometimes, on rare occasions, I call it rare, oh, they're over there, just to the west of the road here. And I go look and I find the nest. Whoa, is that great? That happens maybe 4 or 5% of the time. I've had equally equal number of times. I've gone to a former site. They're not in the old nest. I'm on Nicolay National Forest. I'm on a former site of red shoulders. I play the call, expecting to get a response. Nothing. No response whatsoever. Okay, so I start searching and I spend about an hour walking around and radiating out from that nest, going to other nests that they used. Finally, I find a nest within 150 yards of that call. And it's got a female sitting on the nest. Well, why didn't she respond? Well, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes that female will not respond while she's incubating eggs.
Mm-hmm. Right.
She just sits there and kind of says out loud, that's the male's job. I don't have to do that. And hunkers down and just sits, stays on there. Occasionally, if he comes back calling, that riles her up. She'll call a few times. She'll probably stay on the nest. When I hear two birds calling from the same area, then, boy, I go and search that area really well.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. We
Okay, thanks.
also, in red shoulder habitat, have a lot of broadwing hawks.
Okay, I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yes. However, usually the broadwings are not back until late April and early May. And by then it's starting to leaf in early May. And I'm starting to lose the chance of really finding the red shoulder nest. Once it leaves out, it's real hard to find the nest. Even visiting sites where I've found the nest many years in a row before, if I can't see, pretty far, it's hard to locate those nests. The hawks can be pretty vocal and pretty, really advertising their territories, but other times they can be really secretive and quiet.
Yeah, it's great that you have that different window to locate nests and that broadwings aren't back. I would imagine if they're hunkered down and being pretty quiet, it might be hard to differentiate with similar nest characteristics as broadwings.
Yeah.
Well, we have another question here from Trudy. She was wondering, were the overwintering birds male or female?
Most of them were females. One was a male, but that I'm not sure if that's because we had trackers on more females than males, and that's because of that difference. I'm not sure if we just kind of are a little bit skewed and lucked out and got several females that overwintered, but there was one male and three females.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you'll learn more with a larger sample size in the future. Jerry's wondering, please describe your harnessing method.
It's a backpack harness. There's one strap that goes around, pretty much around the upper breast, and another strap that goes around the lower breast. We try to hit the breastbone, and then we pull them back and tighten them. We try to have about a little finger of play between that tracker and the bird's actual body. Feathers fill in that quite quickly, and we try to work the straps down in the feathers.
Okay. Krishna is wondering, were the birds that you monitored also banded? Did you give them bands?
Yes, yeah. There's quite a legal system with the Fish and Wildlife Service. You have to have a banding permit. You have to then have your banding permit amended to include putting transmitters on.
Mhm.
So you have to have a whole plethora of banding permits and that to do this. So for somebody like Matthew, who kind of wanted to do a master's thesis on red shoulders, it would have been a lot of work for him. He didn't have a master permit. He didn't have a permit for putting transmitters on. You know, he might not have even had a permit to do hawks. There's a lot of, you know, little legal formalities that you have to meet before you can do this work.
There sure is. Yep, I'm familiar with that process. And we got one more question here from Erwin. What is your average egg laying date?
In Wisconsin, it varies. There might be a week or even 2 week spread over the state from this average date that I'll give you. It's for my birds in northeastern Wisconsin. And that's the laying date is average is about April 12th. But that can vary depending on the spring.
Yeah.
If we have a cold late spring with a lot of snow, it might be later, maybe a week later. It can even differ. My brother in central Wisconsin is probably 4 or 5 days earlier than that date of April 12th that I gave.
Okay. That's so interesting. Well, I loved listening to this, John. I learned a lot. I particularly liked seeing some of the local movements that your birds made from their breeding range to different areas. And I love how you can really pinpoint how long those migrations, spring and fall migrations were. It's just full of great information, your research, and I'm excited to hear more and see where this project goes. I'm sure there's lots more you're going to learn. And I think that's it. Let me check the chat. Yeah, I think that's it for questions that we got, but I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us. I will turn things back over to Josh, see if he has anything to add.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. And some good questions there too. And John, thank you again, just to echo our appreciation for your putting together the presentation for us. And it was very well done. So thank you. Just a few notes moving forward for everybody. Next month, we're excited to welcome back Esther, who's going to, some of you may recognize Esther and a similar program that she provided a year or two ago. We're going to get an update from her on the raptor monitoring that's taking place in Colombia, but also some of what is happening related to the threats that they have locally on those birds and what they're doing and what they're looking for in terms of conservation support. So more to come on that. You'll be definitely getting reminders to register and links for doing so. So please join us next month. And as I stated in the beginning, just, again, our sincere appreciation for all of you do to help support not only HMANA, but raptor conservation. And so we can't thank you enough for that. And also, just as always, a call for help if you're in a position to continue supporting or help support. Please visit HMANA.org/support. And you'll find many ways to either join our kettle or make one-time donations where you can help us bring more programs like this to you, as well as help HMANA provide dollars and resources to our many migration sites that we support and raptor conservation as a whole. So thank you, everybody. Thank you again, John and Julie, for helping facilitate. And we will look forward to seeing everybody in a month. Take care.